Well, big moves in Starkville, Mississippi State just landed some serious talent from the transfer portal, and it's no coincidence. With Brian O'Connor now in charge, the program's already making noise. Let's break down who's coming and what it means for the Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com. I'm Jaron, Spor, national college football writer at Athlon Sports. That is Landon McBride. We have a packed show for you today because since our last episode, the transfer portal has been transfer portaling. We've got several new additions to talk about for Mississippi State. Also, some major news as pitching coach Justin Parker is staying with Mississippi State, so that's even bigger news. And then, of course, every Monday we finish off with our top dog of the week, and mine could be out of left field a little bit. You might not see this one coming, which is probably the case for a lot of these, especially with no season going on right now. But
yeah,
let's talk about some of the transfer portal additions. So obviously with the Virginia ties for Brian O'Connor, you figured several of them would be Virginia related, and all 5 of them are technically kind of Virginia related. 4 of them did play at Virginia. One of them's brother played at Virginia, and he's coming on board. But we can go through some of this. Thomas Valencius, James Nunnally, James, Vitus Valencius, and then Aiden Teel. Teel, James, Nunnally, and Thomas all played at Virginia, and then Vitus is Thomas's brother. He played at Illinois. First off, great to get some of these guys in the boat. We talked about several of them already that these would be big additions if Mississippi State would be able to pull off. Mm-hmm. But do you have one that you were like, yeah, that's the big one. That's the one that really needed to happen?
To me, part of it's Aiden Teel, I think. I mean, he had a great season last year. It was a 7 home runs, 40 RBIs, 317 batting average, 538 slugging, very good. Solid numbers. He's been on my radar for a little while as, his older brother, Kyle Teel, just got called up by the White Sox. So right. I remember hearing about Aiden coming in too. So that's a big one. Not the biggest fish that we've named as a possibility, but he's huge. And obviously getting a pitcher in the mix, Valencius, Tomas, huge strikeout numbers. Hopefully he gets the, kind of the numbers under control where that ERA comes down, but those are the two big ones, one on each side.
Yeah, and I wish I would have pulled this up because Tomas is someone that we talked about a lot when the portal happened. It's kind of funny. Aiden Teel was kind of not someone that really came on our radar as someone that would possibly enter, and we didn't talk about him a whole lot, and he might be the biggest addition so far. Mm-hmm. We'll see if any other players come on board that might change that, but for now, Teal could be the biggest one. I think Tomas is probably the biggest one just because of the pitcher need. Yeah. And I wish the thing I was going to say, I wish I pulled it up before we started this podcast. I saw it. And I believe it was Robbie Falk from On3. It was one of the On3 guys. I think it was Robbie Falk that tweeted it. But someone was like bringing up that ERA for Tomas and about how, it was 4.59 for his season this year. But he's a freshman, but it was high. And he compared his numbers as a freshman to that of Jamie Arnold's as a freshman.
Oh,
and Tomas is quite a bit better. When you end up talking here in a second, I'll see if I can actually find the exact stats on that. But he was actually quite a bit better. And Jamie Arnold was someone who had a higher ERA. I think he might even had one higher than Tomas. And it kind of made you think, okay, you got to remember that these guys are freshmen, and there's going to be some growing pains that go along with this. It's not just going to be perfect from the start, but he's obviously a guy that they've identified that they believe has an absolute ton of talent.
Yeah, the strikeout numbers alone let you know he has the stuff to be a big time pitcher, a big game pitcher, someone you could build a staff around. So hopefully there's some more pitchers coming along because, like we had mentioned, the staff was not deep, lost a few guys to graduation. So you need more than just Tomas. But, I mean, he could be he's a big one to get. His brother, also a big one. I mean,
a ton of experience. That was big.
A lot of experience. This will be his, he kind of has a weird thing where he played a year at a smaller college. I think it was a community college. So he actually has an extra year of eligibility. So he's coming in, ton of experience. Last year at Illinois, 7 home runs, almost a 350 batting average. So that's huge to have in the middle. One thing I did find interesting, a lot of these guys are outfielders. Teal's an outfielder. Vitas can play outfield and first base. Sean, I believe, is an outfielder. And James Nunnally, also an outfielder. So a lot of outfielders, which I know he's visiting Tennessee recently, Henry Ford. He's talking about how he's moving to the outfield. So there's a lot of outfielders that are being mentioned as possibilities and already on board. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, you might have to definitely move some guys around. Valencius, I know he played, like you said, I think some first base, but he was all Big Ten second team as an outfielder. So, I mean, he's very good at the outfield. I did find the stats. So, Jamie Arnold went, and it was Robbie Falk from On 3, so credit him. Jamie Arnold went 2 and 5, 6.34 ERA, 44 innings pitched, 45 hits, 38 runs, 27 base on balls, and 49 strikeouts. Tomas had a 5-1 record, a 4.59 ERA, 64.2 innings pitched, so 20 innings more, almost 21. 36 runs, and remember Arnold had 38, 17 base on balls compared to Arnold's 27, and had 70 strikeouts compared to 49 strikeouts for Jamie Arnold. And the 70 is outrageous when you think that he only appeared in 13 games. I mean, this guy almost is averaging 7 strikeouts a game.
Yeah, 7 strikeouts a game, and his strikeouts per inning. I mean, that's something when I'm looking at pitchers, especially in like minor league guys, if I'm wondering, is this guy going to be good? You can't just look at raw numbers because sometimes guys just stack up these numbers. You have to look at kind of the percentages. So if you average more than 1 strikeout an inning, you're doing something very right. In 70 strikeouts to 64 2/3, that's pretty good, especially in, Big Ten, Illinois. You're not doing it at a low level. You're doing it against very good, some very good players. So, I mean, I think he's a huge addition. Hopefully he continues to develop and can become an anchor for this staff.
Yeah, and that was Tomas, so that's Virginia. But ACC baseball is still very good as well. So it's not like, just having that kind of year, and that's why they're so high on him with his potential is outrageous. And so that's why you want to get that guy in the boat. Another guy that isn't necessarily he's not a newcomer, so that's not something that really fits the segment in terms of talking about all the newcomers. Ryan McPherson decided to stay. That was massive. Ace Reese, we finally got that news. He decided to stay.
That's huge.
Massive news. Both of those, and those are both guys. We said Ace was the key, had to make him stay, and he is. And then McPherson, we talked about how much potential he had to go along with Tomas. That could be a very good pitching staff next year.
Mm-hmm. And with Ace Reese in there, and now he has Vitas and Teal either setting the table for him, offering him some protection. There's a lot. That's a lot in that batting order to deal with. So, I mean, obviously, we talked about what happens if Ford comes. That's massive middle of the order. This lineup got so much longer and just a much more difficult lineup when you have guys who are hitting almost 350, almost 320. You add those guys in, and Ace Reese does what he did this year. That's a dangerous lineup.
Yeah, and I do want to update kind of on the transfers out. Landis Davila transferred out. There are some of these guys I don't believe we talked about last time because I think there was only maybe 4 or 5 at that time. There's been a lot more since. Gavin Black, Dylan Cupp. I believe we did talk about Dylan.
Yeah, we talked about those 3 guys.
Yeah. Nolan Stevens, he left and has committed to Oklahoma, I believe, which I believe his older brother played at OU. So that kind of makes sense there. Michael O'Brien, people, if you forget him, he had that outrageous catch. I can't remember who that was against, but we did a whole segment on that. where he robbed the home run. Man, I'm blanking on who that was against, but yeah, it was an insane play. Luke Dotson entered the portal. Robert Fortenberry entered the portal. Kevin Mantle, and he has since committed to Nebraska. Jackson Owen, which these three guys are all catchers, and that's why Sean, that we mentioned earlier, is a big get at catcher. But Russ Highfield, Steven Spalita, and then Lucas Buckner, who's a shortstop, also entered the portal. So you ended up at the time when we last talked, there wasn't many guys that had a lot of production that you lost, but now you've lost some that did have some production, but none of your big stars, and that's the big one. And then we even mentioned some guys that we thought weren't going to be back next year, but because of all these crazy all these crazy rules with having an extra year, we thought they were out of eligibility. It sounds like they might be able to come back, so we have to wait for some of that stuff too.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion going on. I just want it to get sorted out at some point. As soon as I get it to where I understand who is playing and who is not playing because of COVID years, they now throw in this JUCO year thing on me.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll understand how many years of eligibility these people have.
Yeah, I believe Pico is one of them, but don't expect him back kind of thing.
He's like on the roster, because I was just looking at because they've updated it. That now says 2026 roster. He's still on there. So I don't know. Maybe he's doing like a grad year. I don't know. I don't understand things.
And people have said he's probably not coming back because of the draft and everything, but he does have eligibility where he could come back. So that's all confusing too. They need to probably go to the system of years of eligibility left instead of listing what year you are, like you're a freshman, sophomore. Instead, just tell us, do you have 5 years of eligibility left? Do you have 4 years of eligibility left? What do you have?
And the MLB draft rules don't help anything with this because it's not how many years you've played college baseball. It's like how many years you're removed from either high school baseball or your 18th birthday.
Yeah. And Noah Sullivan is another one that technically has possibly another year. And that would be massive.
That's huge.
Massive if they were able to get him back the way he's playing at the end. But all right. So we talked about a lot of pitching. We finally know who the pitching coach will be. Do Landon and I kind of agree with that decision? We'll break that down. That's coming up next. Well, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So if you're watching the NBA Finals, Thunder, Pacers, Game 1 was a great game. So for those that didn't watch, you missed out, especially if you didn't want to watch because they were small market teams. It was some of the best basketball you will see. But Shea obviously played a great game. So if you wanted to bet the over on his points, he was going to play great. But then the way the Pacers got hot in the fourth quarter, maybe you throw on an in-game parlay over something like that, maybe the amount of threes they hit. I think they ended up hitting 8 out of 11 or something like that in the fourth quarter. So maybe you throw something like that on, because that's kind of how they've been. They've almost been the cardiac kids when it comes to the postseason. So maybe that's something you want to throw in on the Pacers anytime they get down, that they might make a run here for it. But if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so the pitching coach drama has been sorted out. It kind of sounded like a deal with Corey Muscara, who is the Wake Forest pitching coach, almost seemed imminent for the longest time. And I remember even some sites, as soon as O'Connor was hired, it was reported, okay, Muscara's coming with them. But they had a game that it got announced on a Sunday. They had a game that following Monday, so it was like they wanted to wait for that game to end and then announce it. Well, just before O'Connor's press conference, which, real quick, for those that if you missed the press conference, we'll do a podcast tomorrow, kind of talk about what our thoughts were on that. We just thought these two topics were kind of the bigger deal to lead off on Monday, but we'll definitely talk about that Tuesday, kind of what comments stood out to us. But it was announced just before his speech, kind of the coaching staff and Justin Parker staying on board as the pitching coach.
Yeah, that was big. It was surprising, but after reading O'Connor's comments about why, I understand how we got here. And plus, I mean, yes, we complained about Parker's pitching staff for a lot of this season, but we also, praised him for the job he did as the interim head coach and what he got out of this team. And part of why O'Connor was interested was he wanted someone who had recruited this area before and kind of understood the area and this job, and he got that. So, I mean, good for Parker. Will it work out? We'll see. I mean, he definitely already has one more big time arm coming in here. So if he can turn it around, we're going to know real quick.
And that probably played a big factor in McPherson's staying, was Justin Parker still being there. And, there was some things that weren't perfect with Parker obviously taking over, but we also have to remember he's completely turned that room around from where it was when he took over, because it was a disaster, 2-3 years ago when he took over. And he's done a lot of really good work. We just were hoping that it would have been a little farther along at this point. But he still did a really good job turning that room around. And now we'll see what ends up happening next year. But good for him. I'm really happy for him because, I think it was last week in the Top Dog segment, I talked about him. He was my top dog of the week just because of the job he did kind of rallying the team. And I know there's no moral victories, but he did such a good job just kind of keeping the focus on the season and rallying them, and where they took off and they ended up being in a do or die game, or almost to a do or die game. No, they did get a do or die game because they beat Florida State once, right? No, did they end up blowing it? It's been so long ago, I can't even remember what ended up happening in that game. That's right. They were up and they blew it late. In like the 8th inning or something like that. I remember it now. But nonetheless, you were in a game against Florida State for the regional championship. You obviously had to win 2 to do that, but he rallied them where a month before that it was like this season's like they're not anywhere close to a regional team. They're not making it, and he took them on a great run. But yeah, so I'm really happy that he's able to stay and kind of continue to see what work he's doing. And props to him, because we see so many guys get brought in as an interim and do this great job, and then they don't get hired as a head coach, and they take it as almost a shot and an insult. And they're like, I'm not staying. I'm leaving. I'm going to go find a head coaching job somewhere. And for him to kind of put that ego aside and say, no, I still want to be here, even if it's not as the head coach, like props to him.
Yeah, that says a lot about him. And it kind of makes his comments, the ones that we talked about, I wish they hadn't said it this way, how they handled it was wrong, kind of makes his comments almost more confusing now, just because he's saying, like, if he had been told he was gone that day, then I get it more. But now it's kind of like, dude, you're still around. Now it's just kind of weird you said that.
And I think it was one of those things and also on the flip side, it looks like he was a guy sticking up for his players.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when he said, hey, I'm coming back, or he was announced that he's coming back, I think that's why you did see a kind of a run of players saying, all right, I'm coming back too. Ace isn't a pitcher, but because Parker ended up becoming the interim, he was the head coach for a little bit. And so maybe that played a part in Ace wanting to stay. You never know.
Yeah, he does. With how the team turned around when he took over and how he kind of stuck up for them at various times, both there and, some of his comments after games that they didn't play as well, which off the top of my head, I don't remember any of them, but I remember there were a couple that were like, yeah, he's fighting for his team out there.
Right.
I see why you want to keep a guy around like that, especially with how O'Connor mentioned, he's developed some of these pitchers into being very good college pitchers. So if he gets a few more high-end arms and he continues to develop, you have a guy who he might not be here long, and not because he messed up, but because in a year or two, because of the job he did as an interim coach, and then what he does as a pitching coach, he might get a head coaching job on merit of what he does now.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And man, if they could get Pico to come back, that would be massive. I just don't see it happening. I think he's probably
I don't either, but man,
that would be, that should be a lethal team. And I just remembered that Florida State game. They were up 2-0 heading into the 7th. Then they scored 2. Then they scored 3 in the 8th.
You're planning a wedding, you get a pass.
Yeah, I'll take that. Hey, I'm doing this podcast after my bachelor party, so I better get some kind of love for that. So, but no. In all seriousness, I think I was actually really excited to see the news. Like Corey Mascaro, I thought would have been a home run higher.
Yeah, it's home run higher.
Part of that was like, I just didn't see any way Parker was staying. And I even said that, I believe it was last week in the Top Dog segment. I've said it before, but I definitely said it last week.
Yeah, we kind of did a little happy trails segment.
Yeah, it was kind of like, you're not coming back. Like, it sucks. You did a great job, like, kind of thing. But I'm just really happy, not just for him, but it just shows that Brian O'Connor was noticing all the great work that he was doing. And if you're getting that kind of, recognition from a guy like him, who we think is a, amazing coach, despite what some of the commenters say that they think we're negative against him.
It just means they didn't watch the episode.
Yeah, because we clarified several times that we were just trying to tell both sides of the story. Because, in all seriousness, and just a quick tangent, we don't want you to, if this doesn't work in 4 years or 3 years or whatever, and O'Connor is out, we don't want you sitting there going, how did it not work? Everyone told me it's amazing and it was going to be great. We wanted you to know if it doesn't work, here are some of the things that might be why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, do we think those things will happen? No. We think it's going to work, and we think he's going to be well. He's going to do well. But if he doesn't work, those guys on Locked On Mississippi State told me this could be an issue, and it is an issue. Whatever the case may be. But but super happy for Justin and glad he's going to get to finish kind of what he started, and maybe they can make a run at this. You got to get Henry Ford away from Tennessee. That's the big one. You got to get him.
All right, now we got to get him in and get Pico to stay, and just two little small things.
Yeah, and Sullivan. Get Sullivan to come back for another year. All right, we'll come up next. Our top dog of the week, kind of going off the rails a little bit on this one. I'll tell you more about it. That's coming up. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, who's your top dog of the week?
Well, I'm going to keep things on the rails right now, and I'm just going with O'Connor. I mean, he's got, great press conference, great event, nailed that part. Got the first wave of guys coming in. We just talked about all of them at the top of the show. Great start. And now with news that guys like Pico might be coming back, Noah Sullivan might be coming back. Playing for him could be a huge reason for them to stay if they have the option. And there's still the possible addition of Henry Ford. He's got it's been a week, and he's done a great job so far bringing in new talent to get this program back to where it belongs. So, going to go with him.
All right. I like that one. There was a couple ones I thought of. One of them was that one.
Oh, and I forgot he got Ace Reese to come back. Sorry.
Yes, Ace Reese as well. One of them was that one. One of them was going to give props to Justin Parker again, but I did him last week, so it's kind of like, Zach Selman was another one. You found your top target, you got him, and you seem all in. I'm going to go a little off the rails here, and I'm going with the NIL initiatives for Mississippi State. I believe the Bulldog Initiative is like their top one. If I remember the name correct, I believe that's still the top one. If there's another one I'm missing, then let me know in the comments. But props to them, because first off, if you didn't show that you were all on board, Brian O'Connor probably would not be here.
Right.
If you didn't show you were all on board, Ace Reese probably isn't here. Valencius is probably not here. Nunnally is probably not here. Ryan McPherson might not have stayed. Like, there's so many things that could have went off the rails if you're not committed in the NIL sphere. And not to mention, I was reading a deal the other day, and I wish I remember where I read it from, but it talked about how they are more committed to football also than they've ever been as an NIL initiative. And Landon and I have done many podcasts on why that is so massive. So it seems like after kind of being so disorganized, the NIL initiative at Mississippi State is starting to round into form. And so they have to be my top dog of the week, because they helped land O'Connor and land all those transfers that you just brought up.
Yeah, that's big. Also, pitch to start calling the Valencius brothers the Valencii.
I like it.
But no, that's huge. The NIL getting behind it, and some of that also goes to Selman, because he's the one he's drumming up some of those, which we talked about that too. He's got the buildings going up now. Now it's time to get that NIL coming in. And if the NIL is already coming in at this kind of force, watch out.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. That's Landon. Follow us, Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We post a video every day, Monday through Friday, so check those out. We also leave a comment on our YouTube videos every single day. We love your interaction on those comments. We love talking with you guys and kind of getting the feel of the fan base even more. We also post a poll of a question. It's a different question with a poll. We love your votes on that as well. Like I said, tomorrow we'll kind of dive into what was said at the press conference on Thursday. If you missed it, it was on TV on ESPN Plus, I believe. Usually when they do this, I haven't looked, but I'm assuming it's there. They usually have that recorded where you can go back and watch that. Yeah, so if you missed it, you can go watch it. It's probably on YouTube somewhere too as well, if I had to guess. But we'll talk more in depth on that and what we thought our thoughts were on what all was said. But until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.